Investor Coaching Show. Here's your host, Paul Winkler.
And welcome. This is the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler. Talking money and investing. Long here. This hour with Mr. Jim Wood.
Good day, sir.
Good day, eh? Boy, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Flashback to the 70s. You're like, Paul, you don't sound old enough to have known about the 70s. Oh, yes. Good music.
Yeah, and the McKenzie brothers. That was
Yes, Doug and Bob. And, of course, oil crisis and inflation and bad economics, but good music.
an interesting hair.
And interesting hair. Well, I mean, we have interesting hair now.
Well, yeah. I guess it's always interesting, just in different ways.
Yeah, I think so. So, Jim, I know that you have some things, and I thought I'd just let you what is it that you want to talk about? What's going on in your world?
Well, certainly this is kind of right up your alley in terms of some of the psychology stuff. But
Okay.
really good article, Best Interest blog, the top 5 regrets of the dying.
Okay.
Because we think about, we talk a lot about planning and money and numbers and things like that. But I think people approach retirement sometimes without thinking through the happiness part.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about I need X amount of dollars. I need to do this. I need to have this covered and stuff like that. But just like, what do I need to do to make myself happy? And so this article is the top 5 regrets of the dying. So people that went through life and thought, if I could have done something differently, this is what maybe I would have paid attention to.
I love that topic. Yeah, because I actually did that college commencement one time for one of the local colleges. And that was the topic. Because the guy said, hey, I understand that I've heard you're a good speaker. The guy goes, this is years and years ago. So it was like, wow, okay. Yeah, thank you. What do you need? I need somebody for doing commencement. And I said, oh, okay, great. What do you want me to talk about? I don't know. What do you want to talk about? And I said, and I had just read an article that was like that. And I said, what if I do something like that, but I gear it toward college students so that they can avoid the regrets? And he said, I love it. Come out and do that. And it was fun because I remember people coming up to me afterward with notes all over their programs on stuff that I talked about. So I'm curious what these people say. What did they come up with?
Well, yeah, this actually, and I'll give the proper attribution because this article was referencing Australian nurse Bronnie Ware, who worked in palliative care, easing the pain of the dying.
Mm-hmm.
And this list was the top 5 regrets of the dying. And it's traveled far and wide over the internet and that type of thing. Because it's a list that really is a good way to think about, what kind of things should I be thinking about to kind of make those later years happy?
Mm-hmm.
So
integrity versus despair, as Eric Erickson actually put it. But
okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's the final stage of the 8 stages. Yes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So the first one, I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected to me.
Mm-hmm.
Of me, excuse me.
No, that's good because as we often talk about that, you're playing to ghosts is what we call that. So in other words, what happens is we have people, mom, dad, sisters, relatives, neighbors, all have expectations, and they go, you know what I can see you doing one day? I can see you doing blank, and I can see you going and becoming this. And then what happens is you, as a kid, you don't have the ability to reject that. So you take it on as, oh, I better do this or there are going to be a lot of disappointed people. So
and something that you certainly, I know in that group that you just mentioned is your spouse, right? I mean, there's a lot of us, myself included, that are people pleasers. We want to, we have just however we're raised or whatever part of our makeup is wanting to make other people happy, other people like us and stuff like that. So a lot of times that can derail really something that might make you happy because you're living at the expense of somebody else's wishes that you're trying to make happy.
And you're miserable So what you end up doing is making other people miserable.
Yeah.
Thinking that I am fulfilling their wishes. Yeah, it is funny to think about that. So that was one. So trying to live a life based on others' expectations, I guess we could put that. And in essence, not necessarily finding your gifting. But, so when you're younger, now that can be a double-edged sword because, sometimes people go after their passion. As one of my recent guests came on, he was talking about building a business and he was talking about the problems with pursuing your passion. I liked what he said. He said, pursue your gifts and do what you do well. Find the things you're good at and then apply them. And what will happen is what you apply them at will end up becoming your passion because you're using your gifting, which I thought was brilliant. And the example that I used is I always felt that I was a terrible salesperson, but that I could explain things and I could teach. And the point that I made to him, I says, I could probably have taught botany. Something, finance is just where I ended up. But the reality was I was good at taking something that was very complex and bringing it down to something simple. And then therefore, and everybody out there and listening to us, you're good at something. You're brilliant at something. I liked what one of our friends used to call, Mark used to call this, he said, distinctive genius. You have distinctive genius in things. You have certain things that you're just distinctively really good at. And it's not bragging. It's just saying that's what you're good at. So it's a gift. You can't brag over a gift. You can't brag when somebody gives you a nice look at this car that I earned. No, somebody gave it to you. So you look at that way and go, oh, maybe I should just be applying it's just the gift that I've been given. And then it will become a passion.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with trying to make other people happy. And that's not really the message. Mm-hmm. It's just about living your whole life maybe against what might make you happy and against what you'd really like to be doing. It's kind of a multifaceted issue, but it's certainly worth looking at in terms of, am I living for somebody else or am I living for myself?
So people look back in their lives and they basically say they regret that. What's something else that they come up with?
Well, I find this is interesting because we're, as a society, and certain message, I teach to my kids, well, you got to work hard to be successful, that type of thing. But it just actually, one of them is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And I think that probably happens. There's certainly tons of people out there that are workaholics, and you do have to make sacrifices in life and try to achieve some balance. But sometimes that balance gets flipped on its head, and things that are most important or things that might make you happy get pushed by the wayside because it's work, 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 work.
My question is, because some people do work and they avoid connecting with people, through that. They go to work because they have a hard time connecting with people in their lives. And they have a hard time connecting with people in general, period. Is it due to that? If it's due to that, then yeah, there is something really, really... Now, some people's work, they're actually spending time connecting with people in their work. And they're not avoiding people. They're actually connecting, and they're actually doing something that they feel like it's their God-given gift. So I can see where that can be taken too far in a way, but I can see where it also can be just dismissed, because in America, especially, there are a couple addictions that we can have in America that are actually socially acceptable. One of the addictions can be money. Wow, look how successful he is. Look how successful she is. Wow, she's just really, really, what a hard worker. And then, the work is the other one that is a close cousin to that, because that's socially acceptable. Being a hard worker, being very industrious, and the Pilgrim, the Protestant work ethic. That's a Pilgrim work. That's funny. Yeah, well, I'm thinking of John Wayne, Pilgrim. Oh, well, so a little slip here and there never hurt anybody. It makes you human. But anyway, So anyway, I think about that Protestant work ethic. That's, there's something really, really good about it. And sometimes what we do is we avoid life through burying ourselves in our work. So I can definitely see where that would be the case.
Yeah, I think it kind of summarizes it nicely in that time is a limited resource. You only have so much. And then finding that balance between working for the money that provides the means to do the other things that we like, spending times with our loved ones, funding our passions. That's what that time working is. It just really, I think the message here is balance. You can spend all your time working and driving and trying to be successful. And certainly to a point, that is a very good quality. But if you go overboard at the expense of everything else, that's one of those regrets for the dying.
Exclusions, it's interesting. The choices that we make required exclusions of everything else is often the way I think about that. Like let's say you're an ice cream guy. Let's just use that as an example. And, I really like cookies. I love butterscotch. I love, maybe you have all of these different flavors. I like chocolate. I like vanilla. I like, pecan, whatever. And the thing is you're taking a spoonful. Whatever you've chosen as that spoonful, you've just excluded every other choice out there. And that's it with life. It's so hard when we think about it that we have to choose things, but it creates an exclusion of everything else.
Yeah. We're limited. It's a limited resource.
Yeah. So, and the reality of it's just reality. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah. So making those choices and just going, I'm just going to be okay with it, whatever fork in the road, whatever fork I took in the road, right? Whichever lane that I took coming out of that fork, I should say. Right.
So how about this one? I wish I had had the courage to express my feelings. Some people have no problem with that. Some people have no filter. They just say whatever they're feeling at the moment. But I think most of us at some point probably keep things in that we might like to say or might like to express. And especially feelings that, sharing with somebody that you care about, letting them know that the role, how important that they are, things like that, or just, if they make you happy or if things bother you. Sometimes people swallow that. I mean, again, this is just another thing that people wish they did more of, which is sharing those things.
It can be dangerous for people. And that is why a lot of times people don't do it. They feel like if they actually share what they're thinking about something, then they'll be shot down. Because some people can be dangerous. So it's, it has to be, people that you're around have to be, you have to know that you can have that give and take without necessarily coming down into, getting, being, I hate to use this word. I'm struggling right now because I'm going to use a word that people, oh gosh, I've heard, because you hear people say a judgment. But the reality of it is a lot of us don't share what we're thinking about anything because we're so afraid of the ramifications of change, what it'll cause for us, the hardships it causes for us.
Right. In your mind, it leaves you exposed. It leaves you vulnerable.
Yes.
And even if and that's part of the feeling. So I don't want to share that because there could be blowback. There could be, I could catch some flack. And even, and it's probably a bigger issue in your mind than the reality of actually doing that, but that doesn't discount it. That doesn't make it any less real.
Yeah. No, it is. But, and for some people, it is real because they don't necessarily have that person that will accept what they have to say.
Oh, absolutely.
And listen to it and take it in. And it's a shame because that is something that actually plagues people. I can tell you from the other side of the fence, and working with people, for as many years as I have in those particular areas, that yes, it is an issue. That's good.
Okay. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends.
Now that's an interesting one for me, because I didn't have a lot of close friends growing up, and staying in touch with them. It's like I don't know when did you develop most of your friends? In high
probably
school,
the best friends I ever had in my life were probably my early high school years, and it was one of the things where we ended up having to move in the middle of those years, and those friends I basically got kind of ripped away from. And the fact that I never had friends of that caliber, again, that I've ever felt that close to. So I, it's kind of analyzing myself, was that that trauma of losing those friends, one of the reasons why I never made that good of friends again. But I look back,
because why make friends if you're just going to lose them?
Right. And people, military families probably get that a lot, to where they're in one place for a while, then they have to go somewhere else, and they consistently have to meet new people in different areas, things like that.
And guys especially have, I've just noticed a lot of times that if they lose a spouse, then they end up not doing so well in general. Some guys are not going to be this, but in general, a lot of times that happens because they're just not great at connecting, whereas women just tend to have better ability to connect. And it's no secret, when you look at studies of younger people, young guys, young girls, that girls tend to be a lot more social, a lot more emotionally kind of aware. And the guys, you have to develop that. And typically how you develop that is something called parallel play. It's kind of what you do with kids. With little kids, you get them parallel playing. In other words, they're both of them are playing with their toys together. And then what you'll notice with kids is that as time goes on, then they start to share. And then what they do is they start to work together on a project. So it's little by little they come together. Same thing with guys. A guy, what happens is that what you want them to do is go, hey, find hobbies, go out and do stuff with other guys, go out and have it. I see guys will do this, they'll have Friday morning breakfast or Tuesday morning breakfast or something like that with the guys. And then what happens is they develop that, and then they go out and they do parallel play, and they go out and, hunt together, or they go fishing together, or they go bowling together, or they go do whatever together. Golf. That's another one.
Golf's huge. Right?
Golf. Yeah. It's, as they say, you get to really know somebody when you're spending that much time with them. And as they say, it doesn't build character, it reveals it, right? But, so often what happens is then now when you have losses in your life, you have a support system around you. So I think that's a huge deal.
I always love that idea of, coffee with the guys, like every day, some day during the week, you go meet with the same guys, you have coffee, talk about what's going on, everything, whether, you see it in movies, you read it in books and things like that, but that just always sounded cool. Like the same guy is essentially showing up all the time and razzing each other, whatever.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. Don't do it, but but eventually, yeah, that's gonna be the thing. And it's a regret that seniors have. If you wonder what we're talking about, it's regrets that people have, and it's regrets that they have on their deathbed. And you look at it and go, what do people regret? How can I avoid that? Because we talk about retirement here all the time, and we talk about money, and we talk about investing and all those types of things. But sometimes it really gets down to, what is money for? Money is a tool to help you express what you value. Well, what do you value? Well, what we look at is what people look back at and they say, man, I wish I valued that more. So that's how this all connects, if you're wondering.
And the last one, and this kind of wraps them all up in a bow, is I wish I let myself be happier.
Wish I let myself be happier. Yeah. So basically saying to myself, you have responsibilities and you must do that. And we do, but maybe balance is what that screams to me.
Yeah, I just think maybe letting yourself enjoy things more instead of worrying about the next big thing. And we talk about this investment. People are always so worried about the next market crash or things like that. But just life in general, I'm worried about something out there that's going to happen. And so I can't enjoy in the moment. I'm so worried about something that's going to happen tomorrow is I'm not having fun with my granddaughter.
And I was reading in the paper this morning, this person, Wall Street Journal, saying, here's what's going to cause the next market crash. And, this is overvalued. And you think, yeah, go ahead, not make my day like Clint Eastwood would say, ruin my day. And go out and say stuff like that and get me thinking into the future instead of living for right now and what's going on right now. And being present, I think, is so huge. Like when I sit here and I talk with you here on the radio, Jim, I am like right here. I'm not sitting there worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not worried about the past. I'm sitting here right here. And I think that is a key to really being a lot more grounded and a lot more happy in the present. But a lot of people, you're right, they don't allow themselves that pleasure.
And it's hard to do. And when you have the 24/7 apocalypse du jour, yelling in your face all the time about the next scary thing, and people can't pull themselves away sometimes. So.
No, so true.